Hi. Uh, for the last, I think, year for myself, or slightly more than 1 year for myself, and later on for, I would say, 6, 9 months for most of my colleagues, we have adopted the 12-week year method. What is this about? This is basically this quarterly planning, and if one is cynical, they say, "Oh yeah, the guy invented quarterly planning," but there is a little bit more to that. The idea is that you spend 1 week picking a goal and formulating a plan that you then execute in 12 weeks. So 1 week for planning, 12 weeks for executing, 13 weeks, 1 quarter. So I think the author tried to deviate the attention from the fact that it was exactly 1 quarter. But the argument is that in most small organization and in this context where everything is changing, it's very hard to make a plan for 1 year. Sure, you can write down your hopes and make an exercise and showing your creativity and your fantasy and come up with a 5 years plan, a 20 years plan, whatever. But the reality is that for most organizations, if you create one plan for 1 year, if you're lucky, after 2 months, you forgot about that. And if you, by mistake, open it after 6 months, you realize you completely deviated and adapted because things change. And so I think there is a tension between the necessity to adapt your plans, but also the necessity to stick to a plan and do some efforts before reassessing. And so I think that works reasonably well, because it gives you some clear defined time to reassess your priorities, but then the idea is that you should be disciplined, and there are a couple of suggestions. And this is one of those books where the content is, to be generous, 3 pages, and the rest is motivation and convincing you and so on. It is what it is. Right? It is the time we are living is that. Very different from the kind of books that I was reading when studying engineering, where there was no motivation. It was just suffering and a density of information that will crush your soul. Half a page will require 3 weeks to be understood. Now we live in a world of fluff. They could tell you something in 5 minutes, but let's write a book. But nevertheless, it's an interesting book, and this approach works because it gives you a little tricks, or give you the suggestion of measuring how much you're sticking to the plan every week. So it gives you a couple of ideas on how to apply this in practice, so it doesn't become one of those ideas that you hear about. It sounds great on paper and they don't work for you. I'm sharing this because we managed to stick to that. So it's something that can work and something that I find positive, has a positive effect. And yes, I think it's nice also because encourage also my colleague to think ahead, to have some visibility, to interiorize the priorities and take the priorities that we have as a company and apply them to the specific goals of their team. So that was very good. And right now I'm in the week where I should define the goals for my next cycle. So I'm reflecting on these. Well, as I shared the other day, I'm working on a book, so I will guess that getting the book out and start promoting it will be part of this goal. Then there are other things that we are considering, and something that I will not necessarily work on myself, but that are important as a company. So continuing on our code processing services, We are working on a tool for documenting RPG code bases. And personally, I'm doing more infrastructural work. We are working on refining our approach to migration pipelines, and we are using LineWeb for that. And I'm working on, at this time, I'm working on some optimization because we're working on a code base of a few millions lines of code. Few millions lines of code means typically 10 millions lines of code, 10 millions AST nodes. And then if you're using LineWeb, there are things inside the nodes, doesn't matter what they are, but they are called meta pointers, and we have 100 millions of them when processing a few millions lines of code. So we have a lot of them, and so I'm working on some optimization about that. So, and this is also connected on the philosophy that we use for creating LineWeb Java, a philosophy that some people may disagree, but the idea was that when we created LineWeb Java, we wanted to keep as simple as possible the most obvious, boring code that would put you to sleep if you stare at it for more than 30 seconds. So we started like that. So it was easy to understand, it was easy for people to contribute, was reasonably quickly to write. Of course, for compatibility reason, we wrote it with Java 8, and I was dying a little bit inside when using Java 8 instead of using Kotlin. That is so much better. Nevertheless, I survived the experience and I am stronger because of this. But after creating a solution was as simple as possible, now that we are applying it at scale, from time to time, jump in the profiler and say, oh, why I have 3 gigabytes of this? Can we squeeze that? Can we optimize that? Can we intern the instances of the meta pointer? Apparently, yes. And apparently, this makes things way quicker and save a ton of memory. So I'm working on this kind of things. Okay, I went overboard a bit longer than our usual comments, but thank you for listening. As always, if you have comments, if you have ideas of things that we could discuss, if you strongly disagree with things I'm saying, please add a comment, send me an insult on LinkedIn or whatever. And thank you. See you soon.